8:30, we'll call Sawyer County Finance Committee meeting to order. Let's ask clerk to call the roll, please.
Bruce Paulson, Dawn Pettit,
Here.
Ron Kinsley,
There.
Tom Duffy,
Here.
Stacy Hessel.
Here.
Let the record indicate we have a quorum. Next item is pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance. Flag.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 4, certification of compliance with open meeting law.
The meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 1924 of the Wisconsin statute.
Thank you. Item 5 is the meeting agenda. Is there any changes or corrections? Hearing none, we'll go with what we have. Number 6, public comment.
Linda Zolmer, Edgewater property owner. My comment is a follow-up to comments I've made at other committee meetings this week regarding discussions in committees and at the county board as far as jurisdiction over certain groups or matters that come before committees. And I believe been recognized that there is overlap between committees. And so what I would like to request is that when there is something like the hangar leases that are coming up, and it's let's say the hangar leases that were just approved by county board a couple months ago, that the financial impact of the rates or any financial considerations be reviewed by the finance committee. And the issue that I raised last night at the property committee was that the recommendation coming forward to that committee was 20 cents per square foot hangar lease rental. That committee decided to reduce that amount after hearing from some hangar lessees that they thought it should be a lower amount, and so the committee decided 15%. When that matter came before the county board, the minutes did not reflect that there was a recommendation that was reduced, and there was no real discussion about the details of the lease. More or less, it was an approval of the format of the lease agreement. So as the county continues to struggle to raise revenue and is reducing costs, I think even if it's a smaller amount, that those things should be looked at and then the decision made based on full information. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 7, approval of the minutes. There's 2 sets of minutes. We'll do one at a time. First one is finance committee minutes.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Ms. Hensel to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then we have the joint minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll second it too.
Motion by Ms. Pettit, second by Mr. Duffy to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 8, 2022 budget update. Who would like to roll for sleeves to tackle that?
Well, I can start. There's really not a lot of information at this point. I think, as you know, departments are preparing their budgets. They have until the end of this month to turn them in. So we're in that process. A few budgets have come in, but most have not. Just a couple items we've found out since we pushed the budgets out. The Wrs rates for next year are in. The general category and the elected category, they're going to come down about 0.25%. Law enforcement is protected. Law enforcement is actually going up about 0.25%. So overall, it's a decrease for our budget. And we just found out yesterday for workers' comp, our mod rate, which is a reflection of the claims made on workers' comp, is going to go down again. I think we're at about 0.95 this year. The estimate at this time is it's going to come down to about 0.82, 0.83 for next year. So that alone is probably a $35,000 decrease on the budget. But we got to see what rates, because rates don't come out until October. So if the rates hold, it should be a decrease. If they go up or down,
So in other words, it's probably gonna balance to a zero.
it could balance. But it's, I think it reflects some of the work Tom and Rose have done to reduce some of the claims and manage some of the claims that are really kind of driving that mod rate down. So I think it's kind of being aggressive with their,
That's good.
Yeah, one
managing
other
that.
thought on that too. Recall, 2, 3, 4 years ago, we switched workers' comp companies, and that caused some consternation at the time. But the company that we're working with now is much more helpful in helping reduce the claims, getting people back to work. Rose is working very diligently on getting those people either light duty work or checking up to make sure the injuries occurred at work and all those kinds of things. So been a lot more proactive in dealing with the workers' comp claims, and it shows in the mod factor that we're seeing it coming down.
so that's at this point, unless you got questions, that's really all.
How do we compare to other counties with that mod factor?
Well, I don't know where we are now, and especially looking into 2022. I know looking back the last 2-3 years, we've been high because we had hit 1.245. We had some claims, and I mean, we've since then been working to bring it down. They consider 1.0 average. So if you're below that, you're better than average. I think most counties are around here, probably in that 0.8, 0.9, 1.1 area.
We were one of the highest for a while.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding the budget?
We had some significant talk in Health and Human Services on their budget. They've got their first draft out, which we talked about at Health and Human Services on Tuesday evening. And a lot of their programs are pretty much the same as they always are. The issue continues to be the out-of-county placements of mental health individuals, and the significant dollars that it costs the county to pay for those individuals. So, it's still, could be a $750,000 to $1.5 million hole that we still need to fill. And as we talked about in Health and Human Services, it's darn near impossible for them to cut that out of their budget because they do need to provide services, and those are services we obviously need to and want to provide. So it does become a countywide issue to balance the budget. So, just be aware that as we kind of compile these budgets and we get a number on where we're at as compared to the levy limits, that we'll probably have a lot of work to do, as we do every year.
Well, when you speak of budgets, what's the latest on the Oasis building on Highway 63? Is there any update on that?
Yeah, we discussed that Tuesday. Also, we're still in negotiations with Northwest Passage to determine the future of that facility.
Are they still working out there? They have,
Yes, I don't believe we have any placements there from Sawyer County currently, unless we have one. It's either 1 or 0. The day is today. Today is the day that they have their board meeting, and so then Paul and I are meeting with their representative tomorrow morning, I believe, to find out what happened at their board meeting, and then from there we'll see what's going on.
so if we have 0 or 1 person out there from Sawyer County, if they have 8 beds, I think, how many people do they have out there? Do they give you a report for that, or do you know?
I think there were 2 other individuals there currently.
At one point, used to be anything under 5 was nonprofit.
Well, and the issue is the county pays for 6 beds, whether they're filled or not, so.
You see kids out there playing basketball, maybe 7, 8 kids. Who are those kids? Is that part of the inmates or the neighbors or?
I don't know that there's that many kids there, so I don't know what that group is.
Is that a day facility? Like, is it a date, like a daytime watch kind of thing?
Yeah.
Maybe.
For hours.
Well, I just, no, I mean for the extra people, because I've seen that as well and wondered.
That's probably the other side, the Northwest Passage.
I could be, yeah.
Who's in the other half of the building? Do we know?
Northwest Passage,
They have the whole building?
they have the other half, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole building is occupied currently.
Just wonder if we're gonna sell it or not, get some money. That's where we're going. Okay. Anybody else have any questions regarding that, other comments? We're on to number 9, updated state biannual budget.
The governor has it on his desk, AB 68, I think, is the bill that was passed for the 21 to 23 state budget. So the governor has line item veto power, so he's reviewing, and we'll get some budget out of this by the end of the month, and then we'll talk about what that means for counties. So we don't get too excited until we see what the final budget is and how it affects us. So that's where things are at on the state budget.
How much time does he have to veto?
Like till
I don't-
tomorrow. I think his version is due tomorrow, isn't it?
Or it's not tomorrow, it's real soon, but I think
Yeah.
it is tomorrow. Okay. Opioid settlement discussion.
Just to make you aware that, you know, the county and all the counties, actually 71 counties in Wisconsin are involved in the opioid litigation. And there is talk publicly about there being a settlement soon. The state recently passed AB 374, which is helpful for counties. That bill allows the settlement, the agreed upon settlement, where the counties would receive 70% of the funds and the state 30% of the funds. And that could be allocated immediately after there is a settlement. So that is helpful for counties. If we do get a settlement and the county receives some funds, those funds would be used for remediation and abatement of opioid kind of activity. So it would be very helpful for our Health and Human Services activities in that regard. Obviously, drug issues are a big portion of what causes us grief here in this county. So, and we have no idea how significant those funds would be, but it should be helpful for us to tackle some of those issues that we need to tackle so that we don't have to expand the jail in the future.
And
As was
what
discussed
numbers are
last
we-
night.
What numbers are we talking about?
We don't know the numbers at this
No,
point,
nothing, okay.
Yeah.
No guesses even.
not publicly, no.
No.
If we do get a settlement, that stuff should be in Health and Human Services and maybe mental health, which is part of Health and Human Services.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, we just bring that up because it could significantly affect how we budget some other things. You know, we've got a lot of moving parts here in play. We've got, you know, the operating budget, which is what we normally do year after year. You know, we've got the new court branch, which will require us to do a drug court. So the development of that drug court could be augmented by these opioid funds, as well as this application for the TAD grant through the state. That would help with treatment and alternative diversions, or whatever TAD stands for. So, you know, these other funding sources kind of come together to help really where we need that help. That's going to be significant in the programs we're trying to develop to keep the jail population down and the drug overdoses down, which will affect the Sheriff's Department, Health and Human Services, the court system, and everything else. So, you know, this is a good opportunity for us to kind of start to more effectively tackle those problems.
Give us a little update on the drug court presently. Is it operating yet, or where are we at with that? Yeah.
Drug court isn't, you know, Justice Point is on board and helping us develop that. They're going to be significant player in writing the TAD grant application. You know, as people go through the court system, they get referred to Justice Point for monitoring. And they're, you know, significantly over their capacity on what they can actually handle. Currently, they're handling them because we don't have the drug court up and running. So we need to bring those numbers down so that we can move into more of the diversion programs that are yet to come.
What's holding us up from having the drug court operating?
Money.
Well, money is number one, and number two is just developing. You know, we used to have a drug court, and that went away for whatever reason.
The gentleman that ran has gone away.
Yeah. So it needs to kind of be redeveloped. And so what we hope to do is bring in someone from the state. I just actually talked to Chris Channing, the court district administrator, yesterday. We had talked prior. There's a new person that helps counties develop their drug courts. And so we're bringing that person in to CJCC at their next opportunity to talk to us about how we get off the ground with that. You know, so there's that. There's also the individuals involved in coordinating that effort together. So we've got some things to tackle.
So is the LCO court system, are they considered a drug court also, or is that separate?
I believe that, I mean, they have treatment out there. I don't know that it's a drug court. It's a treatment center.
Okay. So they have the police and then they have the court system, they have no jail or anything out at LCO?
Correct.
Okay. Are they ever considering that?
No, we would still be, you know, they don't do any criminal activity.
Okay.
All the criminal activity runs through circuit
Ours.
court
Okay.
and inmates
Okay.
here.
Just wanted to make sure if that was something that could alleviate some of our pressure also.
When is the grant due from Justice Point, and how much are they applying for?
There's a limit on the dollar amounts. I think there's two different pieces to it, and I think they were both in that $125,000 to $150,000 range. And the grant applications, I believe, open in August or September. So the preparation between now and fall.
So are we optimistic about getting some or all of that?
I would hope so. I mean, the state wants counties to have these programs, and you know, we're one of the few counties that don't have that TAD funding.
Yeah.
So that, you know, even if we don't get it this year, there's more money allocated next year, I believe. So I mean, we're hopeful to get some funds that
So
are significant.
is it state or federal or both?
It's run through the state.
Good.
Number
Mr.
11.
Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Hoff, we did have discussion with LCO regarding a possibility of them expanding. They would could possibly build a courthouse and a jail. So before any talk about having to expand our jail would begin, I think we would have to talk to the tribe also, because the tribe is doing child support cases and they do minor offenses, which is supposed to be taking the burden off of the Sawyer County. So the discussion was, were we going to try to get some other offenses that on cases that they could hear out there? They have done a update to what they currently have to alleviate some of the pressure off of our judge and the incoming judge. But the tribe does have funds available and can apply for grants to help out our county. And I still don't understand why we are not looking at that option to try to help us out. The tribe has access to a lot of grants that they can apply for and help out the county. And Mr. Schuman, this is a discussion we have gone round and round about. And that's why I always bring up about what are they helping out on mental health? What are they helping out on the opiate crisis. The tribal nations are receiving a big a package, and a lot of that is included in it, and they should be contributing. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you.
Well, I think on the jail, they don't have any criminal jurisdiction there. So they handle civil matters and they can broaden that, but only criminal matters end up in jail. So they don't have any rights to put non-tribal members in the jail they would build. So I don't know how this can help us.
Right
For the
now, we're
jail.
not planning to build on our jail either, so that's why we're putting all these programs in place.
If we have to add on to our jail, we have failed in our mission.
All right. Anything else? Number 11, American Rescue Plan.
Okay, so we all received the funding for the American Rescue Plan, and there's 4 or 5 allowed categories of uses for the funding. One of the categories is revenue reduction. The county can make a calculation and determine if for each year 2020 through 2024, if the county has lost revenue attributable to the COVID pandemic stuff. It's attractive to the county because there's broader usage of those funds if you qualify. You can use them in other areas other than what's specified in the guidelines. So included in your packets is a calculation of the revenue loss for the year 2020. I'm not really going to get into the details of the calculation unless you want to. I can, but basically, you look at 2019 as the base year. In our case, we take the revenues, all revenues of the county, less any federal sources, less any bond proceeds kind of stuff. Get that net revenue figure, increase it by 4.1%, take that total and compare it to 2020's revenues after subtracting federal sources and all that. If your revenue is less than the 2019 calculation, you have a revenue reduction, and the county can choose to pull that money out of the ARPA funds to use it as our to make up for that revenue reduction. In our case, looking at the 2020 calculation, we're just about break even, but we're kind of in that we had just a little bit too much revenue during 2020. And we did have a good revenue year in 2020. Sales tax was up, stumpage was up, other areas of revenue were up. Fortunately, then we can kind of look forward to 21, 22, 23, and 24 and make those same calculations, which I've done at the bottom of that sheet, making some assumptions that if the counterfactual year, the base year, you got to increase by 4.1 each year. If our true revenue collections only increase 3%, then we're not holding pace with that 4.1. We eventually could get into a situation of using some of the funds for the revenue loss calculation. However, revenues this year are significantly higher already than they were last year. Sales tax is up even higher, stumpage is up even higher, ambulance is up even higher. So right now, I would say even for 2021, we're likely not going to qualify for a revenue reduction that we could use for the ARPA funding. We still have future years, we'll keep watching it, but at this point, I don't see us being eligible for that.
But we could become eligible as you track it through, correct?
Yes,
In the years.
we could. Because this counterfactual term, 2019, each year you increase that by 4%, and then you compare your actual. So that base is building, and if our actual revenue does not increase at that same percentage, we could be eligible.
Okay.
But right now the trend is we're not.
Which is good news in the
Yeah.
sense that our revenue is climbing, and that does help us. And if it doesn't climb, then we could use ARPA funds to replace that revenue. And then when we do that, we can use those funds a little bit more broadly, as Mike said, than the confines of what we can use those funds for right now. So that's why it's important to do that calculation and keep track of it, because it would give you some more options for spending those dollars.
Okay. What are some potential uses that we are looking at?
We have had this on the agenda for each of the other committees. A couple of things have come up, and departments are thinking about it as they talk to their cohorts in other counties and whatnot. Board members certainly hear things and can bring things forward. A couple of things came out of land committee yesterday. We could improve parks, perhaps. Parks, are deemed to have excess usage because of the COVID activity. So potentially we could use some to improve Hatchery Park. We talked a little bit about the water sewer infrastructure related to the project that we're doing. We did have the 2 broadband applications to the PSC that were approved at last county board meeting. There are some other broadband efforts in the wings. There's some other things we could do to address the negative economic impacts or the public health response, but those are things we're still kind of looking through.
How about, like, if you're talking about parks, how about a way to get to the parks?
You always want to do roads, don't you? Yeah, so far we're not seeing an end around to get to roads. But, as we talk about other funding sources, there's also that infrastructure package that is in the wings somewhere, and I don't know what that would entail, but it's just money flowing from trees everywhere.
From generations everywhere.
Yes.
If we get funneled in the right direction. Anything else regarding that? If not, we'll go on to number 12. Hello, Bruce. Number 12, Finance Committee roles and responsibilities.
Well, you want to?
Well, Mike, I guess I tried to take care of your concerns. Budget number 4, that 25,000 may not apply to all. So what I'm suggesting is that it's, you would bring to the committee's attention large projected revenue issues. Budget issues, let's say revenue and revenues lower or expenses are higher of $25,000 or 20% of the budget annualized. So that might, I don't know if that helps you. You had a concern before, you thought 25,000 might be too, I'm going to say limiting, but I'm putting words in your mouth here. But.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to define it. I was going to suggest today just take the 25,000 or more annualized out of there and just leave it the way it is. I know that doesn't leave any kind of limit in place.
Right.
It's just because depending on the size of a budget, 25,000 might be large for some budgets and it might be minuscule for others, and then you're
right. But my point of view is that you guys are administrators and you're doing the operations, and really this committee should only see the very large adverse issues. That's my intent, is to try to raise the bar high enough so that you don't have to report everything, and also and it's not so high that we don't know where the major issues are.
What if we just pulled the 25,000 limit out and left it at 20%? Or?
That would be perfect. I'd be okay with that. But then, if we've got a $10,000 budget, then what? 20%?
Well, that's my point is,
That's why I'm saying
The
25.
smaller stuff is not as concerning as,
Right.
as the larger.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, you know, if it's under $25,000, we don't want to see it.
Another question, just sometimes within budgets, I don't always focus just on the line items within a department. I focus more on overall, what are their total expenses doing compared to their budget. You know, they might have one line item that's out of whack, but overall, their department is still within their budget. I mean, how do you?
I mean, I tried to consider that in 5, where I said, you know, we don't want to deal with the line items. It was just the overall budget. So I mean, it would be the overall department budgets, sheriff department, not all the line items within the sheriff's department.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, my point is that we should see major, large possible problems.
Right.
And it's, I guess, if everybody agrees with that, then it's a matter of how do you define it.
Well, and one of the tools I was hoping to use to kind of meet the requirements of this policy was later in this agenda, there's a budget watch list that I
Right.
attached, and I was going to kind of use that as meeting the needs of this policy.
No, I looked at that, that's fine. I mean, I'd like to see a little different presentation, but no, the idea is fine.
What else in there is bothering you, Mike?
No, it was just that one limit, just because departments, you know, we have small departments, large departments.
Right. So that's why, you know, if it's a $10,000 budget and if they miss their budget by 100%, we still wouldn't see it because it's only 10,000.
Right.
This is kind of modeled after what the Cargill Audit Committee had.
All right.
Can we come back to this after we look at this stuff down the agenda farther?
Go
Would
ahead.
that be acceptable?
That's fine with me.
And that way you can point stuff out, Mike.
Sure.
So let's go to 13, budget watch list.
All right, so I've used this in the past a little bit. I don't usually start updating it until we get close to the middle of the year, just because early in the year, you know, we're just kind of getting into the budget. But by the middle of the year, you're kind of starting to see some trends on different line items, and that's how I've used this in the past, is just to compare, okay, in this case, the first 5 months, where are we at? How does that compare to the annual budget, and what's the variance? And again, I think especially in the revenue section, it's going to show that in a lot of cases, you know, our revenues are looking pretty good. You know, even the very first 2 line items, interest on taxes and penalty on taxes, we're already ahead of budget, which is good. It's really attributable to a kind of a one-time thing where there was a large delinquent tax payment that the county received, and there was significant penalty and interest on that particular payment, and it happened to, you know, throw us over budget, which is good. Typically, we wouldn't be over budget yet in that area. Sales tax, that's only 5 months worth of sales tax, and we're darn close to 50% of what we had budgeted. So sales tax has been coming in strong. I really got to believe it's got to be that online sales tax is a lot of that. Next line down, stumpage, same thing. Stumpage is coming in strong. Last year at that time, stumpage was probably half of what we got this year. Now, some of that can just be timing and when, you know, the loggers are out. So hopefully this trend continues through the rest of the year. Tax deed sales, I mean, we've already exceeded budget there. I'm not sure if they carried a property over from last year to this year that maybe is impacting that. Um,
The registered deeds transfer's gotta be way up.
Register of deeds is strong. Zoning fees are looking pretty good at this point. Board of Prisoners is exceeding budget already. Again, I think that's receiving some COVID money from the state for holding some prisoners here instead of transferring them downstate. Ambulance fees, we're probably, after 5 months, we're probably $150,000 ahead of where we were last year at this time. And I think some of that is because we've been kind of monitoring the billing company and meeting with them monthly and just kind of staying on track with them. So I think we're starting to see some benefit there from doing that. Human service collections, they're pretty consistent with where they were a year ago. Expenditure wise, I mean, there might be some line items here where we're a little up, a little down, but I this morning I ran a, for the general fund, I was looking at in total for the general fund revenues and expenditures. Expenditures were just about exactly the same as where we were a year ago. Revenues were significantly higher. So that's good. I did the same thing. Human services is holding their own with where they were last year, as is highway. So I'm not seeing any trends one way or the other yet with those two. So hoping the general fund maintains this pace through the end of the year, because we are going to need some of that funding, I believe, to cover some of the out of county placements Tom was talking about earlier. So just thinking now, here's kind of the watch list that I kind of use, but thinking about, okay, now how do we apply that to the policy we just discussed? I was thinking some form of this I would use this to meet the policy. Bruce kind of indicated maybe you wanted to see something different. I can do it more by department instead of individual line items.
I mean, a number of these, we probably wouldn't even want to see. If you look at the budget items,
Yeah.
if their budgets are below 25,000, I don't think we want to see those issues. I mean, that's my opinion. They're not big enough to be, I'm going to say policy issues. They're more administrative issues. So, I mean, if this is what you want to use, I mean, my only point is that we should know the major problems that we're having as soon as we know them. And so however we want to word the policy, I'm okay with that as long as this committee sees the major issues.
Okay. Just for my benefit to clarify then on the definition of the 25,000, you're indicating to you the 25,000 means if the budget is less than 25,000, don't include it.
Right.
Not if the variance between actual and budget is 25,000 more.
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's my personal opinion. It's really up to the rest of the committee, but
Okay.
I mean, you talk about micromanaging, and I don't think, at least I don't want to be involved with micromanaging, and then the big items are the only things that I want to see. I don't know about the rest of the committee.
When something's online, we need to be brought abreast of it and see where we want to go with it. Although we have the administration to make them decisions, we still want to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Was this issue brought up because we were not receiving the red flags, or? No,
Well, I mean, I think we do, but I would like to put it in a policy,
okay.
Just that this is what, because someday we're all going to be gone. And then what? So that's really what I'm trying to recommend is a policy that we follow. So, Mike, I mean, I'd be happy to work with that wording if you want to play on it together.
No, I'm fine with it, Tom.
Yep.
I'm fine
That
with it.
works. Works, okay.
Do you need a motion to approve it?
We will, yes, if we're ready for that.
So Should we come next month with a resolution to the finance committee to approve this that would then go to the board, or can we just go to the board?
Well, I don't know what's the, I mean, I think.
Or is this just an intern, a finance committee?
No, this would be a board, this would go into the, I'm gonna say the board rules, but didn't we just approve the economic development, and there was no resolution with that, it was just, you passed it on. And
Okay.
that would be my recommendation, just pass it on to the full board, and they approve it, and we put it in the board rules.
So you'd be adopting a new version of the board rule essentially
Right.
with this.
Right.
I'm thinking we should have a resolution. That way it carries suit with whatever, everything else that we do. We have a resolution to get it passed, approved here, and then take it to the full board, and that we can get adopted into the rules.
I don't care, the resolutions works for me too, as long as we get it done.
That way it's consistent with the rest of the stuff.
And we didn't do it for economic development and a couple of other things, so
So they'll catch on eventually.
you sure? Okay, so then let's,
So put it on next month with
what's
the
the
resolution.
resolution, yeah, works for me.
That's all right.
And Mike, on the watch list, is there some way to, I know that some of the reports you have factor in that the budget's an annual budget and we're only through May? So a percent of budget or something like that?
Yeah, I can do that. I can annualize the budget if you want. So compare 5 months of actual revenue to 5 months worth of budget, or annual budget, whichever, or both.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference there, or?
Well, just some way for us to say, you know, I don't have a preference, but relative, we're only through May. Here's how we look through May, you know, comparing it to the full year budget.
Yep.
It's a little cumbersome, at least for me anyway.
I can add a column for that. I can also, you know, right now I show you kind of the monthly, here's how much each month. I can pull that out and just put a total and not see that
Right.
detail.
Yeah, I mean,
Cleans it up a little bit that way.
depends on the committee, but I don't think we need to see the monthlies, it's just where we are right now.
With the comparison of last year, because I think like highways, you're not gonna see them big bills till later in the year.
Sure.
But at the same time, you didn't see them big bills last year until later in the year.
Right.
That way it compares to where we're at,
Okay, so you're thinking we'd like last year this time?
just for a comparison.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
Actual.
Yeah.
That gives us a guide. What else you got? Mike?
I don't, just, you said percent remaining, right?
I don't care, you know, it's just some way to show relatively, you know, whatever works for you that's meaningful.
Okay. All right.
Okay. That take care of 13. 12. These 14, which is future agenda items. On this agenda, there's nothing about the second courtroom, which probably didn't need to be anything on there, but as we have that new timeline of watching things, I'm really interested when we have to go start getting money to make payments. Is that something we could put on the agenda for the future?
Yeah.
items?
Mike and I are scheduling a meeting with Brian Della to kind of go over now that we have the schedule. And then we'll have some information next month for you.
Anybody else, anything else for future agenda items?
At this point.
Number 15, correspondence, reports, conferences, anything, any matters for discussion only? Yes.
I have one item, the National Counties Association does provide a lot of help for counties, and apparently one of their functions NACO is to provide socks to county accountants.
You noticed
You
that?
want to model your socks for us?
Yeah, but they went to you first.
Are they both the same?
Yeah, they are. They match. I noticed that this morning. I think dark pants and white socks.
Nothing else, meeting adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Good day.